So this is a vast subject, really, mindfulness and meditation. There's so many approaches to it. It's, it's been around for who knows how long. The teachings of the Buddha been around for 2,500 years, but people were meditating well before that as well. So, it's really, I have in the title for this morning's talk, authentic practice. And, I think what moves us towards meditation, what moves us towards self-inquiry, and it is self-inquiry, it's a form of self-inquiry, is we are trying to figure out who we are. We're trying to figure out who we are. We are trying to figure out why we experience life in the way we do, why we end up in the situations we find ourselves in, and maybe there's another way to be. Maybe there's another way to be. So the idea of an authentic practice, really, to my mind, is the idea of engaging in a pursuit, a spiritual pursuit, if you will, a meditative pursuit, a pursuit of self-inquiry that's really connected with yourself. There's a lot of stuff out there where I feel people are really cerebral about it, and they're connecting with ideas which have their place, but the strength of mindfulness and the strength of meditation is for us actually to connect with what's actually taking place, instead of an idea about who we think we should be, an idea about who we think we are. So the practice of mindfulness, the practice of meditation, is a pursuit of allowing ourselves to be with ourselves in a non-biased, open, quiet way. Allowing ourselves to look at ourselves with a mind that is open, non-judgmental, and compassionate. And it seems like a really simple thing to do. But when we try to do it, when we look at ourselves, we realize, for most of us, it takes a little bit of work. We have so many ideas about ourselves, so many ideas about the world around us. And a lot of them are born out of confusion and turmoil. That's the problem. So the act of self-inquiry, the act of moving towards an authentic experience of who we are, is allowing ourselves to sit and be with our experience in a direct way. We are so busy in our lives, and we are so busy in our minds, that we really don't give ourselves a chance just to be quiet and have some space. I just came back from a retreat. I led a retreat. But one of the wonderful things about a retreat, and you notice it, most people when they go on retreat, most people when they start to meditate, it's like, my mind is so busy. I can't do this. I try, I've been on retreat, even for 3 days or 5 days, and my mind is still so busy. That's what we notice. But when we come back from retreat, is we realize, for most of us, that we've really slowed down, that we've really been able to slow down. And there is a joy of just doing one thing at a time. If you're sitting down having a cup of tea, you're just sitting down having a cup of tea. You're not trying to do or not trying to figure out 3 or 4 things at once. And so with retreats, but also with a daily meditation practice, we allow ourselves the opportunity to just stop for a bit and look. And if we're not able to slow down, if we're not able to stop, there's no space in our head. There's no space. How much space is left in our head for us just to be present with ourselves? That's why we like going to the country, right? It's why we love going out into nature, like going out to the lakes, like going out to the forests. So we can directly have a more full-on experience with nature. And really, being with ourselves is having a more full-on experience with nature too. The nature of ourselves, the nature of our mind. But why it seems to be a challenge is because our minds are so busy. They don't stop. The person who's skilled in meditation, they don't have no thoughts in their mind, but they've learned to develop a different relationship with their minds, a different relationship with their thoughts, because they are able to find that place within themselves, not within an idea, not within a philosophy, but within themselves, within yourselves, to be quiet, relatively quiet. And in that, we start to look at thought and feeling in a different way. We create a space that's, like I said at the start of the talk, that's non-judgmental, that's open, in which to be with our experience. So that space, that openness, is really what this practice of mindfulness and meditation is moving towards. It's not really a goal to be happy, although everybody wants to be happy. The goal is really to learn to be with ourselves in a skillful way and to be able to observe. Your mind, you're going to be happy. Sometimes you're not going to be happy. Other times things are going to go well. Sometimes things aren't going to go well. And just because you meditate, it's not going to change any of that. But what it does change is it changes one's relationship to oneself. We begin to see a different part of ourselves that is, I use the word authentic, because it's closer to our true self. We begin, in Zen, they have a koan, or a question. It's a form of practice where they ask these questions that are non-linear. Anyway, one of the famous koans is, what's your faith? What was your face before you were born? And what it's pointing to is what they say in Zen is our original mind. So it's that aspect of ourselves before all this stuff was dumped into it, before all the stuff is poured into it. Our face before we were born. So when we are able to connect, when we're able to develop a relationship with that inherent aspect of ourselves, it's already here. When we're able to connect with that inherent part of ourselves, we start to get a sense of our face before we were born. That's that openness, clarity. Quality of mind that's not tainted by experience. And when we develop that as a foundation, then our relationship to our experience starts to change. I think a lot of us grow up with this idea that, and it gets developed over our lifetimes, it seems that there's something about us that's fundamentally flawed. I remember being a teenager, I remember being like 14 and looking in the mirror and really looking really closely at myself, and it's like, what's wrong with me? It's sad, I know, but I think it's pretty universal. There was something wrong with me. I was like 14. I mean, it didn't help that I was born Roman Catholic and was told every Sunday that I was born with sin, original sin. And that really didn't help at all. But there is this feeling that, oh, there's something wrong. And what meditation shows us is there's something that's fundamentally good, fundamentally open, fundamentally pure. And we have the reason why it's so popular, why people go into it so deeply, is because once we start to get a taste of that, then it starts to lead us. It starts to show us the way. It starts to show us the way. So it's a practice that you develop yourself, and you start to get a sense of how to move into this direction, of how to move in this sense of being fundamentally okay. And when we view ourselves from that platform, our relationship with the content of our mind changes. We think we're the content of our mind, correct? But we're not. The content of our mind is always changing. So how can it be us? Fundamentally. You're not the same person. We're not the same people we were when we were 2 or 12 or 23 or 30. Or in my case, 34. We're not that. In fact, if you want to get deep, anything that we can point to is not who we are. It's an experience. But underlying all of this is something else. And right now, what we can say is it's a fundamental clarity or openness or quietness. Because when we do the meditation practice, the practice opens us up to those experiences, to that actuality. Yeah. So the door is there. The door is there, but you have to walk through it yourself. And that's what I'm doing with the teaching is I'm trying to share my experience and my knowledge in meditation to help guide people into that door, into that doorway. And there's lots of people doing it. And some people are doing it more skillfully than others. But ultimately, it's you who need to take the journey. It's you who need to take the steps. And the other part of that is if you do want to explore this, it's really helpful to start with a daily practice. It's really helpful to do the practice. And we talked about that a bit last week. Starting to apply mindfulness in the meditative posture, if you will, in the meditative practice, but also of equal importance is to work with mindfulness in our daily life. So to bring that sense of presence, that sense of kindness, that sense of openness and attention into everything we do. That is what develops a practice. And the practice, when I use the word practice, to me, it's applying the principles in which I was just speaking about, really applying them to our daily life. And it's not just something you do on the weekend. It's something that we develop over time. Consistency is really a big factor. Like, it's a skill set, and like any skill set we want to develop, we need to do it over and over again. Comes a point, though, there comes a point where even though it's not always easy, it starts to become something that when we apply it in our day, we start to feel a lot better for doing it. Get to a point where if you don't meditate in the morning, you don't have the same quality of day. You don't have the same quality of mind as you're moving through the day.